Alrighty, guys, welcome to Expressions of the One. My name is Chris Hanlon, and today I have a very special guest with us, Rebecca. Rebecca Dawson has been, someone that's come into my life for about the last 6 or 8 months, and I would say that helping continue to expand my awareness, Rebecca, which has been incredible. So, welcome today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. Now, for those of you that are going to dive into Rebecca much deeper, effectively, Rebecca, she's been channeling since she was about 18 years old. You had a spontaneous event around about that time in life. And, now for what, 30 odd years, you've been channeling the teachings of, multiple aspects of source consciousness, known as the masters. And some of these I'd come across before, such as Saint Germain, but then, Serapis Bay, Kuthumi, and others now, have been new to my awareness. I also love that, you deliver sort of this information around the paradigm shift that we're experiencing right now as humanity. And it's nearly practical spirituality, I would call it in a way, where you're able to channel the mechanics, I guess, of reality or consciousness in a way that's, I want to say digestible to the mind, but I feel more so it speaks straight to the soul. I know my mind really tries to grab onto some of the concepts, whereas I'm allowing it to sort of wash over me a little bit more these days and just, experience, I guess, the wisdom that comes through you. So I know you work in many, many fields, and maybe we'll get into some of that, everything from business to medicine, education. And you're also a well-renowned author, speaker. There's so much more I could say, but once again, thank you for being here today.
Gosh, thank you. What an introduction. That person sounds amazing. Love to meet them one day. No, just
Well,
kidding.
it's always weird, isn't it, though, when you must hear it
It
so
is.
often about, the identity of Rebecca. This is what I'm fascinated with a lot at the moment is, identity of us as that human, you know, being, that entity, and then the more source consciousness divinity of us that is behind all of that or expressing as that, I guess.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And it was really one of the I don't really like to use the word directive, but it was one of the real cornerstones of channeling with the masters over so many years is right at the beginning there was a very clear view directive that it was meant to be this whole experience for how this wisdom gets expressed is meant to be embedded in the human experience. So it was very important for me to use my name, for example, and not have some other name and to be very upfront about the human challenges that we have and the emotional experiences that we have and the daily chop wood, carry water experiences that we have going through all of this. So there's been, on my part at least, a very deliberate and focused um, approach to expressing wisdom and discussing wisdom and eliciting wisdom through others, that it's all basically about the human experience. Because I think
Yeah.
so often we want to kind of elevate spirituality to move ourselves beyond our human selves, when in fact we can bring so much more of our consciousness to our human selves. So that I feel is really important. It's the human stuff.
I
Yeah.
think it's so powerful. Like, and I personally, like 15 years of sort of, I would say personal growth and spirituality and spiritual growth. A lot of that was like out here. It was always sort of when like, if I can elevate my consciousness, if I can grow beyond the body, if I can, raise my consciousness to another level, which seemed outside of myself. Whereas I know there's been that real shift for me as far as going back into the humanness and embracing it. And especially you speak so much on the body. And that's been a massive shift for me is actually coming back to the wisdom of the body because I was someone that was very analytical, logic driven, mind driven to then come back and go, hang on, like through life experiences such as, divorce, separation, like intense life experiences got me to go, hang on, logic got me all these places didn't actually get me where I wanted. And then there's this innate deeper wisdom that I'd probably been putting to the side, and that body wisdom, I think you've had a huge part in helping me with.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for articulating that. And I've been through a lot of those experiences myself. So it was interesting because having been brought up in the beginning Catholic, where, the body is kind of something denied or it's something less than holy, um, to then move into more of a metaphysical approach where the more we ascend and the more aware we become, we can actually transcend, the limitations of the body. It's so dense, it's the densest part of us, and therefore it's the least valuable to a certain extent in terms of our spiritual growth. And then to move into experiences going through adolescence and into my 20s and so on, where the 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 scale of drama that was experienced quite from a young age, actually. I often used to ask myself the question, or I used to doubt, that I was even in the right position or in a worthy position, if you will, to be even doing something like channeling. And how is it I can offer other people wisdom? Or why is it that the masters are coming through me in such a way to offer wisdom if I've got all of this going on? And I used to really think that that was a point of confusion until one day, one of my friends actually asked the question. I was just mucking around at home and I was doing a little channeling for them, and they very kindly popped in the question, why is it that Rebecca has so much drama going on in her life? Because surely, if she's at the point where she can channel the masters, that shouldn't be a thing, right? You should be
Yeah.
past all of that. And I was so heartened and so embraced by what they said, because in essence they said, well, if you're going to be here to assist with humans understanding the human experience and the human condition, how could you possibly do that if you don't know what it feels like? And that was such a relief, because now if I have difficulty, I don't see it as me being less than, or what did I do wrong to cause this? It's more of a, gosh, this human experience is really intense. This is
Yeah.
an example of this.
It's so powerful,
Uh,
Rebecca.
yeah. And it does enable me not to stay in it for quite as long. So I can be in the depths of it and then go, God, this is intense. Oh, that's right. This is part of the human experience. And then I don't kind of take ownership or try and possess it and then work it all out. But I rather allow that sensation and feeling and experience to then have the space to change into something else.
Yeah, wow. That resonates like totally. I felt when you said like same thing, Catholic upbringing, and then a lot of, I'd say, fear, guilt, and shame around things like the body, around pleasure, around sex,
Mhm.
and through my 20s, I went through drugs, sex, rock and roll. Like I did it all to a depth that led me to carry a lot of guilt and shame. But then I've started to realize, even through like the divorce and all this other stuff, it was a beautiful blossoming through compassion. Like it actually helped me to understand the human condition, the humanness of us all to a depth that who am I to judge anybody now? Like I've been there, done it, got the t-shirt. And so,
Right.
it's helped me personally to create space for others to go, like, I'm not going to judge. Like you're in your human experience doing the best that you know how based on your beliefs, the way you've been raised, what's coming through for you. But the shifting point that you just spoke about was not taking ownership of it, and that's a journey for me still, as far as understanding that, hey, like that's what, as a collective consciousness, as humanity, we may be experiencing some of these emotions that are really intense, right? Especially like February's been really intense. But as you said, being able to not take ownership allows me to experience, sort of move through them and allow them to run their course. And that's been huge for me personally. And then as a parent, starting to look at my kids going, when they're having intense emotions, starting to say, hey, not necessarily how you're feeling, but what are you sensing? Like not trying to give them ownership of something?
Right. And it's a really contentious topic, because even I know right now, as people will be listening to me say, the value of not taking ownership of that experience, alarm bells go off in people, because we have this history of learning how to navigate through difficulty by taking responsibility and then taking steps to correct, or in other words, solve the problem. And that there's merit in that. But what we're talking about now is expanding in our consciousness beyond the view that your challenges are exclusive and unique to you. And I think when we look at our challenges as exclusive and unique to ourselves, it becomes such an incredible sense of burden. And while that can enable us to say, okay, I really need to look at a course correction here or how I can change patterns, what it does is it also moves us into a state where we begin to identify with it even more. So it's a little bit of a catch 22 because the more we seek to correct it, the more we also can identify with it. Unless, and I'm hearing this moment from the masters, that you've been through experiences in a group setting where you're being led to release that eventually once you've identified with it. So that real identification with your challenges as unique and exclusive to you, in my view, is counterproductive to the expansion of an evolution of human consciousness, because we're moving more now into the oneness view. And as we move into the oneness view, it's less about correcting history. And now it's more about recognizing, well, these experiences have been part of the collective human experience. Because if you look into hundreds of thousands of years, we talk about inherited traumas and inherited patterns of experience, but let's also look at there's a set of experiences that are sitting there in a collective blueprint that humanity have been experiencing. And it's been very difficult to be experiencing anything outside of that. So we get the same stuff over and over again. So it's good to realize when you see it as a collective pattern, it takes the pressure off it being unique and exclusive to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now it
That's so
becomes a
powerful.
human problem.
Well, and that's, I would say one of my first experiences where I had that was after my divorce because I felt so isolated, alone, like guilty, the problem, even though I felt also a relief in that decision and moving forward. But then I started to go, hang on, look at the divorce rates on the planet. I'm not alone. Like it's a massive collective experience right now. And so it actually helped me sit back in it and go, hang on a second, like whether you think it's right or wrong or for whatever reasons is separate rather than just going, no, it is an experience that many of us have had. And, then to be able to move through it without personal identification with what did I do wrong or what could I have done better.
I mean, there's always self-reflection, which can be valuable in retrospect. But when you go through something really challenging like that, you tend to be different when you come out the other side of it. And just in my personal experience, but also what I've witnessed with others that we assist through these things, the view that, oh, this is a human experience and I experienced this human experience. And now I've transformed in some regard coming out the other side. You start to see collective experiences as a gift for growth rather than a personal point for self-correction. Because when we say that, we say self-correction with a little s.
Yeah.
So the identity of Rebecca or the identity of Chris or the personality or character of Rebecca or Chris needs correction. But when we look at self-reflection with the capital S,
Yeah.
it's having a greater view of collective consciousness and saying, wow, this is how source consciousness has been expressing itself in a myriad of ways.
Yeah. I love that.
I experienced one of those experiences.
Yeah, I love that. Like you brought it back to exactly what I was curious about was that self-identity, the small self, because obviously we wouldn't be here right now in this conversation or in our own identity of self unless it was valuable to source as far as a fractalization of experience, right? Like I look at
Right.
my role as husband, father, business owner, friend, son, all of these roles. And I'm curious of your thoughts because I feel like previously that defined who I was. And through my life, it never quite fit. It was like a bad fitting suit, a lot of these identities, and I would say since I was little, I never really felt I fit in. Like there was this real desire to try and fit in, to change who I was to fit
Mhm.
my environment. Whereas now I'm stepping into a place of no, I'm the center of my reality. And so if I'm solid in that, then my reality can create and shift around me to reflect more of the divinity, more of the big S, the big self that can come through. So I'd love if you could speak on that a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I both know what it feels like to start to move through life, and the older chronologically you are seen to be, the more roles that you take on. So the more roles you take on, that's a lot of quick costume changes. Because what we find is that a lot of the roles aren't really compatible with each other. So we are going from this to this to this to this to this to this. And of course, how common is it by the time you get into, 30s, 40s, and beyond? A lot of people talk about the midlife crisis. I think the midlife crisis happens a lot earlier now.
Yep.
And that's, in my view, and from what I've experienced and witnessed, it's that accumulation of roles, and your consciousness is expanding into such a state of authenticity that it becomes overwhelmed and is no longer prepared to keep doing those costume changes.
Yeah, right.
So then how do I create a life where I don't have to keep doing that? Where my work and how I am in relationships and how I present myself to my family are all the same. And that enables your greatness to really start to come out. You don't feel as fatigued. You feel creative in the way that you speak with people, and your ideas can be expressed easily. And that's that sense of freedom that we've known as children, because when we're children, we've only got one role, and that's to be the child.
Yeah.
And that's until, you go to school, and then you've got the role of, pleasing the teacher and the parents by getting good grades. So that's when we start to collect these different hats. So really, that sense of freedom that we're all yearning for is just the freedom to be able to be ourselves without all of those costume changes.
Yeah. Do you feel right now on the planet that people are feeling that more than ever, no matter what age they're at?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the wonderful thing about the younger generations coming through is that they're not even really getting into the roles, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of that rebellion is.
Yeah, right. I love that. Like if they're trusting their inner knowing at a young, like not at a younger age, like they just are, and that's what I love. The gift of my three kids right now, like they can trigger me as a human. Like I still, there's certain, I will call it, whether it's trauma or programs that get brought to the surface by them. But more and more, I'm sitting back and wanting to experience with them, and
Yes.
be see the newness that they have in their day, and the new skills that they're conquering, and their new awarenesses and their expansion. And to me, it lights me up. You can tell, like just even talking about it, and that's yeah, I would say that's one of my journeys as far as the authenticity is. How do I transition from somebody who perceives that I need to work for money and I still need to run a business and do those sort of things into somebody that can embody this level of wisdom to be with my children, for larger chunks of time, and to really hold sacred that time that I have with them while they're young, because I think they're just so brilliant, Rebecca. Like I'm in awe of their capacity, of their divinity that just shows through from the moment they come in.
I think one of the most challenging roles that we get presented with as humans, that is the most difficult to free yourself from, is the role of being a parent. And what I mean by that, and I know I'm a parent as well, so we both have experienced this, is when, for myself especially, when I get into that dynamic in being a parent, I oftentimes lose my sense of authenticity. And I lose my sense of authenticity because I'm stepping into a role of what I think a parent should be doing, or what a good mother should be doing, or what is my job here. It's to make sure that they eat correctly, that they get out of bed on time, the homework gets done, they have a shower at least once a day. And that now becomes
Yeah.
or the protectionism, that now becomes the mode of interaction. And so, what I started to realize, when my son really got to about maybe 12 or 13 years old, is that he had absolutely no idea what I was really like.
Yeah.
And I hadn't given myself permission to engage with him as an authentic human because I was so focused on engaging through this role. So it's super interesting because I think it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, I can see. I can go from the trampoline, being in joy, in present moment reality, playing with my kids, to like, righto, switch goes on, time for showers, teeth, bed, and then it becomes crunchy. It becomes like the kids are like molasses at that point, you know, like, and even, try to make it fun and whatnot. And as you say, it's like that total role of parent kicks in. And I would say I don't want to call it selfishness, but sometimes at the end of the day, by that time, I'm like, righto, now I want things to hurry up because I want some present time with my wife. I want to talk with Amber, have some connection
Yeah.
time and not feel I just want to go straight to bed.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a challenge because then, it's difficult for that authenticity to come in to say those things.
Yeah. It's I think it's our greatest joy as humans, like, and I think it's one of the greatest creative expressions is to be the crucible, I guess, of life. And as a mother, I'm sure, I think there's an even higher level and I think a bigger initiation for mums, physically bringing life into the planet. But as a father, I've been very passionate about trying to help other dads become a little bit more conscious in their awareness around how their impact, even from conception, in utero, many years ago, I created a course for new dads and spoke on epigenetics. It spoke on the mother's emotional health and the state that imprints the child in the womb. And that
Yes.
continues throughout life, and I feel a great honor to have my children choose me as someone they want to come down and play with for this lifetime.
Oh, lucky kids. Lucky kids.
Yeah. So any advice that for parents out there that maybe have contemplated similar stuff to this right now, or that are finding difficulty with their children's maybe emotions, or yeah, like I think emotions is the big one for me anyway. Is that when our kids sometimes have bigger emotions, I find it harder to stay maybe authentic or balanced during that period of time.
Right. And I think one of the things we can really assist kids with, especially when they're younger, is understanding what emotions are, because they don't often have the language, the ability to articulate it. And also how they can, once they understand how emotions work in their bodies and that it's really a creative energy that's not being expressed in
Yeah.
a way that's creative,
Yes.
they can actually begin to play with it and actually start to direct it and feel more empowered with it. So, one of the very simple things that we've had a lot of success with, including in schools in Australia, actually, is to teach kids the language of how they're feeling through color because it's very easily identifiable to them. So, to know how they're feeling is the first thing, because if a child can begin to identify what they're feeling inside, is very powerful. So you could say, for example, well, what's your body feeling and where do you feel it? Oh,
Yep.
it's feeling orange or, red, and I'm feeling it here. And so immediately they're becoming self-aware of what's happening in here. And then, of course, there's usually going to be a stimulus or another person or an environment that they're not happy about or feeling uncomfortable with. And so then you can say, okay, so what's going on out there? And kids are incredibly in tune and they can say, well, that kid over there, they're this color. And where are they feeling it? Oh, it's around there. And so immediately they've begun to see that there's a distinction between their own experience and the experience of the environment. Because one of the things that kids find very difficult in the beginning is to tell the difference between their own sense of autonomy and what's going on in the environment. And most of their emotional experiences come about because they can't tell the difference.
Yep.
So once they can start to distinguish, well, this is what's happening in here, that's what's happening out there. Oh, are you matching what's happening out there?
Mm.
How do you want to be feeling? What color do you want going on in your body? Do that. And then they start to do that. And once they've done that, okay, what's going on out there is no longer managing what's happening within myself. And now, what color would you like that experience to be out there? And
Yeah,
then they have
right.
the ability to actually change their environment.
That's so
So
powerful.
this is something, yeah, because kids cannot tell. I mean, they start in unity consciousness. They cannot tell the difference. oftentimes between what they're feeling in their environment and what they're feeling within themselves, which is why so many kids embody all of the emotions that get expressed in their environment by other people.
Yeah, wow. I might use the color chart on myself, I think. Start there, learn about it.
I still use it. I
Yeah.
still use it to this very day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. I think that's incredible advice. Now, obviously, to be conscious of the time today, I'd love to give some of the viewers an experience of the oneness that comes through you, if you don't mind. It's it's awe-inspiring to me because I know we all have the capability, correct, as far as being able to be channels of source consciousness ourselves.
Well,
Um,
we are that.
yeah, yeah,
We
of course.
already are.
Well, that's so. What would you? So that's a great question. Then, so what's the distinction between what you would um, perceive as your style of channeling versus us being channels as source consciousness anyway?
Well, I think my style of channeling began because in the beginning, my understanding of what channeling was there was an entity from outside of myself coming in. And that's
Yep.
how I developed my style of channeling because that was based on my understanding of what it was.
Yep.
So, but of course, a lot of the time these days when I'm in conversation with people, I'm still channeling,
Yes.
but you just don't recognize it. So, when we look at how we define channeling, rather than something separate from you coming out, because we're all about unity consciousness,
Yep.
we like to give the example of a tree, a cosmic tree. It's the same shape as the universe.
Yep.
And our identities, the more individualized we become, the more the awareness of that one structure is sitting right at the tip of one of those branches. And so there's a point on right on the end of one of those that is Chris, and there's a point that's Rebecca. And if we are in resonance with each other, then we're probably a part of the same branch
Yep.
because we feel the resonance, and it's very easy to navigate between how you're feeling and how I'm feeling, and we can share ideas and thoughts, and that's how resonance is felt. So the more deeply we go into our own sense of life within, or the God within, or whatever you want to call it, you have to go into the body. This is one thing people do not really understand oftentimes about channeling. Is channeling is all about going into the body. So the more you go in, it's like leaning back into the tree, away from the tip of the branch and back into the tree. And if you practice enough with that and you lean back in, you can emerge with any aspect of wisdom on that universal tree of life based upon how far back you lean in.
Yeah.
So, the experience of oneness that I often talk about, that I had when I was about 24, that lasted for 4 days, I went so far into that oneness, so far into the cosmic tree, that I emerged again as every single point of awareness because I was able to, because I got that far into it. But most of the time when I'm doing a channeling, I really just lean back in a very comfortable, relaxed way. It's a relaxing back in. And then those other aspects of source, which we call the masters, they're like right there. And it just emerges very, very easily.
Yeah, incredible. It's as I said, once again, it's inspiring because I think if all of us just understood that leaning back, we have a divine team there waiting for us as well, right? Like the wisdom gets deeper the deeper we go, and
Yes.
I know I've had a personal session with yourself and the masters, and the words that I used to describe it were things around nurturing. I felt so nurtured and loved by the masters, by their vibration, their resonance, the words they choose, their sense of humor. Permission was another big one. I feel like the deeper we go into ourselves, we feel we have more permission to express that authenticity that you spoke about earlier. And um, yeah, I like to think that when you have a session such as I had with yourself and the masters, it's truly my own wisdom being expressed through something that's more tangible for my mind to be able to grasp through another.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right.
I think it's fascinating. I love it. I love every time I listen to yourself in the Masters, and I know that you're channeling a lot of the time, channeling as far as this whole conversation. There's elements of wisdom that come through that I'm like, the lines between Rebecca and the Masters are very, very blurry, and I think yeah, that's it's something that I have a desire to continue in my own awareness to sit back a little bit more and see what else comes through.
Really is a flow. And I love the way you said that about feeling supported and embraced. Because if you think about being right on the tip of a tree, when the wind blows, you can feel pretty unsafe as a human.
Yeah,
And the more you relax back in to the boughs of the tree, the more stable you feel. So it doesn't matter where the wind's blowing, you feel kind of stabilized in
yeah,
your knowing.
so
Yeah.
cool. Can we bring the
Yeah.
Masters
So
forward
that's
now,
good.
Rebecca? Or
Sure. I'm just going to
yeah,
take a quick sip of my Earl
yeah,
Grey.
please do. I'm going to have a quick refreshment too.
It's snowing outside, so it's all very white
Oh,
out
that's
there
pristine.
today.
After 10 years in Canada, I tell you what, waking up to, a foot or 2 feet of snow is just one of the most purest expressions, I think, of like nature. So calming and soothing and just,
It is
yeah,
very calming. Yeah, I didn't quite realize that because, being from Perth, we don't really see snow. So
yeah,
it's a blanket of calm.
yeah, beautiful. Yeah, we used to meditate out. My wife and I, like, we spent multiple New Year's Eves just in the mountains. Like, you spoke
Oh,
earlier about living in different places that maybe aren't as in resonance as much with, you're observing a little bit more than feeling in resonance. And living next to the Rockies for 10 years, I always had that place within nature to go. And, we had some special sites around, around water, especially, and with snow.
mm,
And, if I ever need to find calm, I could always find it out there in nature. So I'm looking to
I
develop
love
that within
that.
myself, obviously, or to be able to have it at any moment in time. But I find nature's always been a powerful tool for that as well.
Same for me. Okay, so if we want to dive in, would you like to lead with a question?
Um, I would just like to ask the masters right now a pretty general question. Since there's a lot of intensity on the planet right now, I feel some of the people that'll be watching this maybe haven't delved as far down the spiritual path yet, but they're feeling it like we all are. We're feeling it within our bodies. And I think there's a lot of people that don't have any context or concept of why they're feeling that intensity. And I just wonder if the masters could share on, maybe what's happening for those people that are in that emerging awareness of themselves.
Thank you for the question. Greetings to you, we are with you. Humans will often decide, incongruently in our view, that intensity is disastrous. We do not want intensity, we want to be more spiritually adept so that everything is just a gentle, gentle echo. Is this not so?
Totally. Yep.
And so humans have had perhaps a misrepresentational view that the more expanded in your awareness you become, and humanity collectively as it evolves, will become less intense. And yet, what we say to you is this: the more aware you become and the more conscious you become, the more intense you will experience life to be. Because intensity in its truest form is not pressure. Pressure is intensity that has a counterpoint or a counterforce applied against it. And for most humans, this counterforce is the mind's view or opinion on what is happening. And that is where you feel pressure because you are feeling the expansion of your consciousness and your mind is saying this isn't appropriate. We want to keep everything under control. And when you think about those moments of intensity, they're usually a great well of feeling or frustration or some kind of discomfort that is occurring that the mind is attempting to quell. And yet, if you would allow it just to express itself, you would discover that it will desire to create something. That intensity is desiring to move you in a new direction, or desiring for you to say something, or desiring for you to do something different. So it's creative energy that rises just like it comes out of the volcano, and it creates a new environment from which new fertile growth can occur. So pressure and intensity are not the same thing. Let us speak about the intensity in terms of volume, because you, in your musicality, yes, we
Yeah.
see
Yep.
you have enjoyed periods of time where the volume has been very intense.
Yep.
Agree? And the more
Yes.
intense the volume, the more wonderful the experience is. So there is some wisdom there, because what you've realized is that the more conscious you are, the more the volume is turned up on your senses. And if the volume's being turned up on your senses, it also means the volume's being turned up on how you feel about things.
Mm.
So you're becoming more passionate about things. It's becoming more difficult to ignore. And so the volume is being turned up within you. The pressure happens when your mind says this is not appropriate, or this shouldn't be this way. Equally, as your senses are increasing with intensity, you will notice that the colors around you in your environment are more vibrant. You are beginning to feel resonance with those who you are in resonance with more easily. You are feeling more passion for things. You are also feeling many times more of a sense of grief than you have done before. Because when you become awakened as a human, you don't just turn up the volume on the things that you enjoy and turn down the volume on other things. The entire spectrum of your capacity to feel is amplified.
Mm.
So if you're feeling intense, congratulations, you are expanding in your consciousness. We would
Amazing. Is
encourage you to live life with intensity, because that's where life is. Life itself is intense. And humans will often say, well, I thought that if I became more spiritually adept, I would find peace. And what we say to you is that peace is not the end game. Peace is the doorway of stillness that leads you to new life. And that new life is very intense indeed.
amazing. So can we turn up the volume on our silence, on our peace? Like as far as that intensity you're talking about of feeling, like I'm feeling when I'm in peace now, it's much deeper as well. Like it's just that overall expanded feeling, which allows me to move through, as you said, into that creative mode even more.
Into the next moment of possibility, because peace is the doorway to the new. So, this is interesting because humans will often say, well, peace can have intensity, perhaps, but what you notice is that the human mind likes peace. You like peace because it is the only state in which there is a sense of no requirement. Peace is the state of no requirement, and therefore there's no counterforce or counter pressure from your mind in that moment. It's allowing it to be. Now imagine, if you will, that if you could allow yourself to be in a state of intensity and still be aware that it's appropriate for you to be in a state of non-requirement with it, imagine what that can feel like.
Wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am feeling this desire to create something. There's a fervent energy within me. I can be completely at peace with that because there's no requirement for me to do anything about it. That's something else again.
Yeah. Wow.
That's when you begin to reignite the vitality in your cells.
So would you say that's that anticipation at the moment, like that feeling of there's creative energy and life force there without the need to actually try and expel it or do something to to manifest something, just to be with it and to actually experience that anticipatory feeling?
One question, because what you will notice is when the anticipation is there, and there that is the moment for creation, the inspired action will accompany it. But there are also moments where that sense of creative forces arising with anticipation, but the mind is not yet aligned with the inspired action or thought for it. And what the mind will then do, it will say, well, I don't know what to do with this, or I should do something with it. What will I do? And that's the counter pressure.
Yeah.
And that's where you feel that pressure. So rather know that that pulsation of new creative energy is happening now within each and every human. There are moments where it's just you're feeling it, the engine's being turned on. Allow the engine to turn over, it's warming up. And then there will be inarguable, undeniable moments where there is inspired thought or action that arises with it. The mind doesn't need to try to figure that out because that inspired thought or action will then inform your mind.
Yeah, right. Incredible. Is that potentially why people or myself, I can speak from the self, is like pain at the moment? Is that also that level of intensity where there might be pain showing up in the body and then disappearing and then showing up with the mind sort of putting that pressure? Is that what causes the pain or?
Or we would say that there are experiences of what you call pain, which are in essence what? Experiences of intensified presence. And what it is doing is it's bringing your attention to those places within the body, because those places within your body are, in those moments of pain, looking to expand beyond their current formulation, their current design. So there is expansion of consciousness also going on within the body and in the design and in the cellular structure and organs of your body. So if there is pain there, bring your awareness to it. Oh, this is interesting. What is happening here? Allow yourself to be in that intensity. If there is an inspired action that arises from it, I need to call a doctor, do so. If there is no inspired action, then be aware that you just want to be bringing your focus to it. I wonder what this is going to do. I wonder what it's going to transform into. Because you cannot become a fully conscious human if you are not fully conscious of all aspects of your physical expression.
Mm.
And this is very different to what you and this one were initially taught in your infancy, yes, which
Yes.
was the more spiritual you become, the less you care about what's happening in the body.
Yes.
Rather than I am so fully conscious that I am aware of what every aspect of my physicality is doing in this moment.
Yeah.
And I am aware that all of this is participating in this expression. For example, right now, as you are speaking, how aware of you that every cell in your body is paying attention and contributing to this conversation.
Mm.
Because your consciousness exists in every cell of your body.
Mm.
Ah,
Yes. So I've been called to like do a lot of like cold plunging and like ice baths at the moment. And I've been fascinating from more of a spiritual perspective actually, because I find it brings intense presence into the into the now.
yes, I am now aware of all of my cells.
Yeah, totally. Because I don't like I there wasn't a deep desire from a health standpoint as such to do it, but there was some sort of calling and the mind would resist. But there was something that kept calling me into that water. And that's a whole other conversation about the power of water. I think
Of
it's
course, that is also an aspect of inquiry.
yes. But yeah, is there anything you can add to that around that the experience of like intense cold or intense heat, I guess, if people do saunas or whatnot? Is it just
Well,
that
what
bringing
is it
awareness?
doing? What is it doing? It's actually invigorating the body to become fully present. Now, the question is, are your cells already fully present, or is it that your mind now has an awareness that they are fully present?
Mm, yeah,
Isn't that interesting? Because in our view, this is more of the mind now has an awareness that the body is alive.
yeah,
Yes, rather than this action is causing the body to be alive.
yeah,
So there's something very interesting about that presence and bringing the consciousness of your physicality to your endeavors.
yeah,
Because humans will often say, and this is in our view, a parody, because humans will often say, well, I have a body and it's getting me around, but I'm not very conscious. Where's the spirituality? Where's the wisdom? That person is asleep. And the idea is that the body itself means you're asleep. your consciousness is away somewhere else. And the more conscious and present you become, you bring your consciousness here. And now we are so present, we don't even really need the body. It's humorous in our view.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is the more conscious you become, the more you're aware how alive your body is. Because your body is the portal that enables your consciousness to arrive in this reality.
Yeah.
You need it.
It's so powerful because like my a contemplation of late has been that each cell is effectively a black hole. You know, it's a wormhole. It's a portal. I love when you use the word portal. I just think it's such a when I think about the certain terms that yourself and Rebecca uses, portal, fractalization, um, these experiences, these terms really resonate with me as far as the divinity of the body. And it allows me to sit back, and I've had some profound experiences lately, actually, sitting back into the cells of the body, into the black holes, understanding that that is where vitality is coming from. You know, it's not this external, it's not what I eat, it's
Yes.
not the cold plunge, it's not whether I exercise or not. I'm starting to really embody that how I express is where my vitality lives through the body, not external environmental factors that I try and feed to the body or what.
Yes, your body itself, with its trillions of cells and tissues and synapses, yes, your body itself is a grand fractalization that comes out of a 0 point field. So, of course, the way to wisdom is through that 0 point field, back into the all. And that happens by going back into the body.
Wow,
Because nothing is happening outside of you, it's all happening within you.
incredible. So
That's the
powerful.
greatest adventure. That's the next frontier. It's very interesting to us when we watch your scientists try to move the capacity to explore out into the frontiers of space, because really the frontier of space is how far deeply can you go within the body. That's the frontier of space. It will be very difficult for your scientists to achieve very much in the third, fourth dimensional time space, but it will be very easy to move interdimensionally through the landscape of the body.
Yeah. Well, it's been wow, I don't know. It's something triggered in my consciousness years ago, but when we look at, and I know I've asked you briefly about this before, a brilliant book series called The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, and that triggered a resonance within me. And I'm fascinated. Is it my mind that is fascinated with those teachings and the ability to bilocate and to teleport and to heal? Or is that a memory that I'm having of potentially experiences I've had previously?
Well, the resonance never occurs in the mind because the mind can only assess in a linear fashion. And it is memory based, that is true, but you still cannot account for resonance in this way. Resonance is something that is felt within the intelligence of the body.
Hmm.
And if you feel a resonance with something, it's because the body is saying yes to it. So there is an awareness of that capacity within your body, and your cells are coming to life in that instance where it is recognized.
Hmm.
Like recognizes like.
Right. So that brings me to a question around books then, because I've felt that I've loved to read, and I guess you've just answered it then. If I'm reading something and there's resonance, that resonance is within the body. It's not a mental process.
Yes,
Yeah.
resonance does not occur within the mind.
Okay.
It
So
occurs within the intelligence of the cosmic body.
so then yeah, wisdom, knowledge, reading, you can read anything you like, but it's only going to be when it resonates that you can really say that that is truth for me, or that is truth, or that is cosmic intelligence, or
Resonance is recognition. So I recognize that.
yeah.
Yes. And it's why recognition and resonance occurs within the body, because the mind is not interdimensional. The mind is linear based,
Right.
but the body is interdimensional, which means you can recognize and resonate with something that you cannot account for within your current timeline experience.
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
why you can meet another human and say, I know you, even if you have not met them within this current timeline experience. Because resonance happens with the body, because the body is interdimensional and has interdimensional capacity, and the mind is not.
Wow. Just going to take
Yes,
a deep breath and embody that.
it's, it's very simple. The mind can read the words on the book and interpret them based on what you have absorbed already within your experience, but it cannot recognize anything.
Hmm. Wow.
So you read with your body.
Yeah. Wow. And I guess as we grow interdimensionally, we'll be able to read with every cell in our body, I guess, like physically as well.
Well, there are already children who can read just with their fingertips.
Mm, yeah.
See, this is beginning of telepathy, which is also a human capacity. Once you realize that all that recognition occurs within the body and not within the thinking mind, you begin to realize that all of these senses are available to you.
Is there a way for us, is there a way for me with my children not to condition that out of them as such? Like to, how can I help not interfere, I guess, with their embodiment of their own wisdom?
Well, remember that there is a great consciousness within each and every one of them that is creating and designing their reality also. And they have chosen to arrive at a particular time space experience where there are certain collective conditions. So, of course, it is likely that they will be fluent in two reality languages,
Yeah.
one of the linear experience that humanity is moving out of, and one more of the multidimensional experience of possibility rather than probability.
Mm,
And so it's wise for you as the parent to trust that the great consciousness within them has timed their arrival perfectly for them to be able to become bilingual, per se.
right. So as parents, should we not worry about messing our kids up too much? Should we just,
Well, the more you focus on your own expansion, the
yeah,
less likely you will interfere with the expansion of their consciousness. Agree? The more you
amazing.
focus on the devotion to the source consciousness within yourself, the more you become the living demonstration of possibility for them.
Amazing. Thank you. That's, yeah, that's to
And
the
this
heart.
takes us to the beginning of the conversation with this one,
Yeah.
where they said that to be authentic is the greatest gift you could offer as a parent. Because if you are focusing on your own devotion to source within, you become the greatest pillar of demonstration for your children.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you
Yes,
so much. I think that's super powerful for any parent out there listening is that we spoke about identity earlier with Rebecca, and as you said, that that parent role identity, I think, can take us further from our authenticity. And I think it's very powerful for all parents to realize. I think sharing their passions, their joys, more of themselves with their children is an expansive act, not one of selfishness, I guess.
because in essence, you want to show them how to walk as a human. So you go and you walk as a human and they learn. Yes.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank the masters for dropping in today, and yeah, I'd love to call Rebecca back, or she's probably back already, are you? Or
It is a great joy to be with you.
thank you so much.
Oh, great questions. Wow, that was intense.
Uh, well,
Intense without any responsibility.
I love it, and I could do a whole conversation with you on non-requirement because that was a huge shift in my awareness in the last 6 to 8 months, and yeah, the master said it so well. The pressure, it's like I've allowed that pressure to come off with no requirement and sitting in the excitement, the anticipatory excitement of what's to come and not needing to know, not needing to project manage it through the mind. I know I'd highly recommend to anyone out there listening, there is a myriad of podcasts which cover so much information with Rebecca and the Masters around the mind and its wanting to control and project manage and to actually understand that the body is the one that's really in charge with the mind's just catching up. So there's so much wisdom out there that Rebecca and the Masters have brought forth. It's yeah, it's been a real honor, Rebecca, to have you on today.
Well, thank you, Chris. Your questions today actually created a very unique conversation. So thank you for that. I think
Amazing.
the wisdom for this conversation was unique and special to today. So
So
I
great.
appreciate
Well,
that.
I'm glad to hear that because expressions are the one that's as I said, it was inspired by yourself and the Masters, and it's designed to be that, to be a unique expression of the source consciousness that we all are. And, I'm excited for whoever's in resonance with this conversation to have it, to embody it, and to feel it. So, for anyone else that wants to check out more of your amazing work, Rebecca, where can they find you?
It's just my name, RebeccaDawson.com. So
I'm
lots of
glad.
free content on there, lots of seminars and videos to watch, and we're on YouTube as well.
Yeah, incredible. Well, I really, I'm beyond words, in gratitude for you coming on today and for all that you and the
Thank
Masters
you.
bring forth. And hopefully we'll have you back in the future, as I'm sure there's much more that I would
I
love
would
to
love
dive into.
that. Beautiful. Thanks so much, Chris. It's been lovely to create the conversation today.
Amazing. Awesome, guys. Well, if you want more content like this, I'm guessing, yeah, subscribe or like because it is my intention to bring much more of this wisdom forward and to create it with others. So thank you and have an amazing day.